All right. So first, I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm the founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Actually, we just turned 10 years old as of the first of the month. In that time, we've worked with hundreds of nonprofits on thousands of different types of peer-to-peer campaigns. The reason for this session is we just released our latest and second version of the peer-to-peer landscape report, where we look at 39 different peer-to-peer fundraising platforms. That's right, I said 39 different platforms. There's actually, I reached out to over 50 of them out there. Believe it or not, there's that many in the world. We did some comparison to look at some key features. I'm going to run through that in a bit here, and kind of use that as the outline for this panel discussion. A little fun fact about me: I'm a really reluctant runner, in air quotes, of 2 marathons. I've done plenty of half marathons and lots of quote-unquote fun runs as well. So I have that experience on the on that end of things as well, and been setting up several personal fundraising pages throughout that for different causes. Now on to the other panel members. Claire.
Hi everyone, my name is Claire Geiger. I started actually as a fundraiser myself, very similar to Mark. I was interested in running marathons and doing triathlons, and I wanted to give that a little bit more purpose. And so I found World Bicycle Relief in 2012 and did fundraising for them for about 2 years. And then when a position opened up on the development team managing the fundraising, I got to step up and really help have even bigger impact and kind of empower others to do the same. So I've been working in the fundraising department for about 5 years, and I'm currently working on some of our larger partnerships as well as some global fundraising initiatives that we are doing. World Bicycle Relief is a nonprofit, and we focus on providing bicycles to provide mobility in different parts of the world. We have 3 sections in education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, and we provide brand new bicycles and empower people to seek a brighter future through mobility. We've had a strong, very robust grassroots department in fundraising, and we do everything from virtual events. We have a huge DIY section where people can choose to do anything they want. We've got physical events, birthdays, weddings. Pretty much if you come to us with an idea, we're able to support it. But in fact, our biggest fundraiser is in December, and it's a virtual event on a bike. It brings about 30,000 people together through a virtual platform. We currently work with CauseVox and have for the past couple of years, but we've also worked with Classy Passport, Everyday Hero, and a few other platforms as well. And a fun fact about me is I really love to cook and was once featured in Bon Appetit. So that's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to being part of the panel today. Thank you for having me.
Nice. Thanks for joining us. All right. Anna.
Hi there, my name's Anna Hart. I'm part of the team from UNICEF New Zealand who created the first activation of Workout for Water last year, along with our partners Les Mills. A bit of background there. Les Mills is the world's largest supplier of fitness programs, with a tribe of over 4 million weekly participants and around 130,000 really passionate instructors. Workout for Water last year was a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign through fitness, and it was centered around World Children's Day in November. Our platform was an out-of-box but really customized product from Aid Builder, who are a company based in Copenhagen. We were really pleased with the platform we ended up with, as it worked in 5 different languages, 4 different currencies, and remitted funds to 4 separate foundations. So it was a really global campaign, which presented some challenges, but we were happy with how it performed. We designed and implemented the campaign in just 8 months, and we raised over $1 million US. And we've got really big plans for our next activation in mid-2019, raising even more money for children. We've just come through our second technology partner search, and with the help from Mark here on the call, we've chosen to use Fundraising, which are an Australian-based organisation with a fantastic peer-to-peer platform offering. I'm really happy to be here today to share any of my experience that might be relevant in finding peer-to-peer technology. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. And you also get the points for earliest riser on this panel. So thanks for getting out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning local time to join us. And you sound wide awake, so well done.
Yes, I'm ready to go.
All right, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Martin. I'm with NephCure Kidney International. I've been here since 2013 in every department except research. We are the only organization dedicated to supporting research around treatments for nephrotic syndrome, and that's a rare chronic kidney disease. We have changed our focus a little bit from funding basic research to accelerating research through helping to recruit for clinical trials. So that's a little bit of a switch for us. We do about 40 to 50 walks, runs, and other P2P events. And in 2016, we switched from Blackbaud products to Salesforce and Rallybound. We had a pretty good process. We used a consultant, and we went through a bunch of different products, and that was what we decided was our best fit. And I volunteer with a local nonprofit as a stage manager and producer. I actually have a theater degree. And so we do a benefit concert, and that's kind of a great way to take all these skills and do something fun with them. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about different types of campaigns that need to be supported with the platform you're using. These are kind of definitions or different categories that I go by, but there's a lot of gray areas in here and a lot of overlapping in different types of events and campaigns. So you might see some similarities between some of these, and you might personally define peer-to-peer fundraising differently, but depending on what type of campaign you have really determines what features are most important. And there's some common features that are really important across the board. So starting off with the proprietary events, you know, the old school 5Ks, the walks, the rides, a stair climb, rappelling, whatever it might be, kind of hosted by and facilitated by nonprofits. You know, so important features might be things like collecting a reg fee, or there might be no fee at all, signing an electronic waiver, having your participants sign a waiver, additional questions during the registration flow to find out maybe t-shirt size if you're giving those away, or any physical limitations, or you know, any other connection to the mission, that type of thing. You might also want to be able to sell premiums or add-ons like jerseys, etc. And also very important to be able to ask for additional donations during the registration flow, so that participants are reminded that even though it's a physical event, they might really be in it for a 5K personal best or a PR. It is a fundraiser as well, and it's just a good way to remind them during the reg flow. This here is a screenshot of one of NephCure's events and coming up here later on in Boston. And I don't know, Jessica, what was important, you know, if you want to tell us a little bit more about the campaign and what features were really important when you're trying to find a platform?
Sure. So, I mean, you hit most of them. This is a big t-shirt walk. Everybody wants a t-shirt. So we do have our t-shirt sizes on there that we use. We also have additional donation. I happen to know for this event, we did have one of our patients passed away earlier in the year. So there were a lot of additional donations for this, and we were able to track all those and, you know, have good reports to give to the family. We also do use waivers on here, and we have never had an issue with that. Everything's signed and ready to go. I think that's it. One of the things that we really like about this is that the team itself and the team captain can customize their page. So they can put their own story, their own pictures, things like that on there.
Awesome, thanks. The next category is the kind of challenge, endurance, or destination events. When you think of this historically, the big campaign in that arena was Team in Training. That's a great example of where you might pay like $3,500 or so, or commit to raising at least $3,500 to do a marathon in New York or something like that. normally not hosted by the nonprofit, but it might be. It might be, you know, a tag onto a marathon or climbing a mountain, Everest base camp kind of climb, those kind of things that our clients have done in the past. So important features may be still a lot of the same thing: reg fees, waivers, definitely waivers if you're climbing a mountain, but also other things like a credit card guarantee, where it works like when you reserve a rental car, where you have to put down your credit card. So if you don't make that $3,500 minimum, when those kind of campaigns require that, then it'll charge the credit card for any delta or difference between what you did fundraise and what you owe. We also have a screenshot here of a campaign that World Bicycle Relief did, Team WBR. I don't think it has fundraising minimums, but some of these other elements are kind of pertinent. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so this is actually the third year we've done Ride the Rockies, which is a 6-day event. And we do actually have a fundraising minimum of, for us, we kind of count bikes, which is at about $147. So we have a 10 bike commitment from all of the riders. But I think some of the features that we love is being able to have each individual have their own fundraising page, but it circles up into kind of one overarching team page. So you can see where you're at personally, you can see where the other teammates are at, but you feel like you're a part of this cumulative goal that you can see there is almost 50,000. And that's a really big part of it. We also do use the additional questions of t-shirt size, jersey size, making sure that we have what we need to get the participants, you know, their kind of swag before the event. So yeah, that's a good one for us.
Nice. Then you have virtual campaigns, which can mean a lot of different things, but normally it's organized by the nonprofit. Often includes categories such as, you know, you can have a page where it has different things like workplace giving, or athletic events, or special occasions like donating your birthday or a wedding, that type of thing. Sometimes it'll be set up like that. So really, you know, important features are really just general, being able to help your participants with engagement. So social media integration, email functionality, ability to put toolkits up on the site to help your participants really spread the world and make it viral in addition to virtual. So virtual, you know, nothing happens in virtual. There's virtually nothing. And then you have to make something happen. And that's all done through your constituents and your participants spreading the word and getting out there. And this is another one, example by World Bicycle Relief. Anything else to say about that campaign, or what was important for that?
I think the email functionality there is really important. We have people that register for the event, which is free to attend, but then we also really encourage the fundraising and donation portion of it to drive the revenue. So that allows us to reach out to the registrants and encourage them to, you know, be a part of the event, but also be a part of the impact. So it's a great way to bring people together globally, especially when you're in lots of different locations. Sometimes it's hard to do a live physical event. So this is a really great one for us to bring people together virtually. Yeah,
nice. And then kind of similar in a lot of ways, but I think is a unique difference is independent fundraisers, which are, it's kind of a virtual campaign as well, where people are doing things in their own locations. So there can be some overlap or similarities between virtual campaigns and independent fundraisers, but usually independent fundraisers are, you know, constituent hosted events that may happen all on the same day or may not, but they're really facilitating a lot of the coordination of getting people to do something or go somewhere on a specific time and do something together as a group, either in person or virtually. And a lot of the same important features are there. Anna, this is a screenshot from Workout for Water, which you were talking about at the beginning, raised over $1 million last year, US dollars. And you've put a lot of work into finding the right platform for this year's event, like you said. What kind of features were really most important to you for that? And anything else you want to say about the campaign?
Yeah, and you've got the important features there: social media integration and email functionality. And those were really, really critical in our search for our next technology partner is quite a lot of the feedback we had last year, even from fundraisers who ended up being really successful, was that they weren't sure how to ask their networks for money. They didn't know how to talk to their family and friends about donating. So we needed to make it really, really easy to provide these fundraisers with the tools to allow them to be the best fundraisers that they can be. When we found out that our new technology partner Fundraising has a built-in email template system, we were pretty excited, as it means that as admins, we can upload default emails that the fundraisers can use around, for example, I'm asking for a donation email, a thank you email, an update email. So all of those types of things, we can provide the fundraisers with the recommended emails that they can personalize and then send out. So it's just making it much easier for them. And the same with social media integration, just making it as easy as possible for our fundraisers who are heavily involved in social media to share their fundraising page on the platforms that suit them.
That's terrific, and I think you really hit on a key point there, right? It's important to have these tools in the platform to be able to make the email functionality and the social sharing that much easier. But it's amazing how much work you and your team have to do, right, to put together that content and provide them with the tools to, the action items. What do they do with that? The actual content and all that. And it's an important factor in all of that. And I know your team is working hard at putting that all together.
Yes, but it will be worth it when we can provide our fundraisers with an ideal email template that they can just personalize. So it does make sense.
Yep, definitely. Great. Then we have like tributes and memorials, which again might be kind of combined in with virtual campaigns or some of these others, or someone might be doing a physical event in tribute of a memorial of somebody. But they're focused campaigns, less about the registration flow and more focuses on the subject of the individual fundraiser. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has their memorial fund, for example. That's one of the screenshots there. And then World Bicycle Relief has a tribute to an individual. That's a screenshot from one of theirs. Some of the same important features. I don't know, Claire, anything else to add on that campaign?
I don't think too much to add. I think the biggest thing is being able to personalize that text at the bottom. That's really where it went from being so focused on just the work in the field, but really tying in that individual story and why we were commemorating him and his passion for our work as well. So I think being able to, kind of edit that text is really important there to make sure it's appropriate, especially for something like a memorial.
Yeah, definitely. Great. All right. So, let me back up one here. This slide, I did a version of this a couple of years ago with the first version of the guide as well. So basically, it's a history of peer-to-peer fundraising with the different platforms that have come out over time. I could spend, like a half hour or more just on this slide, but I just wanted to show you, how many different platforms there are out there and how much activity is going on out in the industry as far as acquisitions and mergers. That's one of the reasons why, since there are so many different types of campaigns out there, physical events, virtual events, tributes, endurance that have different requirements, and there's a lot of platforms out there, and I just wanted to give you an idea of the landscape. I'm also happy to share the slides afterwards, but and we'll also be recording this so you can have a look at this in more detail. But just seeing that the online peer-to-peer fundraising really dates back to the turn of the century with platforms like Conterra and Convio, which are now both part of the Blackbaud environment, Artez, which is now part of FrontStream. And then Suite also came out pretty early on the scene, Global Giving, and then moved on down through there. And how much, it's interesting how much the environment is changing. Let me back up one. It's interesting to see how much is changing in the environment with acquisitions and mergers. Even last week with the announcement of Neon and Rallybound merging to become Neon One. That's a couple of the different platforms that we outlined in the guide. And even just last week, there's been acquisitions or mergers going on within the industry. So again, that's the reason why I put together this guide, and we're going to briefly just kind of cover what we cover in the guide. Again, it's available for download. You can go to our website and download it. I think we also share it after the meeting with the link, so you can download that. We review and look at 39 different platforms. It's a really objective review of functionality and key features, and we didn't get into a subjective which one we like best type of scenario, because which one's best really depends on what your specific campaign needs are. What we tried to do is really look at the different areas like design and, you know, how prevalent is your logo versus is the logo of the vendor on the site or in the URL or the domain name, and how much control do you have of the branding and the look and feel of the site, you know, and how, you know, is it in templates and that type of thing. And then we went into engagement, like we were talking about, the importance of being able to have participants email their friends and families and contacts, and can you provide sample emails? Can the organization email out to participants from within the tool, or do they need to connect with a third-party email tool? And is social media, social sign-up available during registration? And also, can you just even allow team functionality? Then you get into user interface with event. Can you have event registration built into it? Can you year over year rejoin a campaign? In other words, you're alum of a 5K that cause that you're close to, and you want to register year over year. That happens quite frequently. How easy is that to do? Can you register multiple people within one transaction, or do you have to register multiple family members or coworkers in separate transactions? Is there gamification, which can mean everything from progress meters to different badges based on fundraising? And can the donor or the registrant cover the transaction fee? You know, these are all just checking these things to see if it's functionality that's available within the different platforms. Then we get into the administrative interface and, you know, what kind of reports and dashboards are available. Can you give volunteers access to the back end, limited access to manage the event? What currencies are supported, and do you do PDF reporting, receipting, which is important in Canada and for some other organizations? Then also integration with other systems. Is it a point solution in and of itself, or does it have the entire enterprise suite of tools available? Oh, excuse me. I just had to choke there a little bit. Sorry about that. What type of merchant services integration do they have? Are there APIs available for organizations and technologists to be able to integrate with other systems, or are there built-in integrations with things like Razor's Edge, Salesforce, or others? And then, of course, we also put in pricing in here to give you an idea of what it costs for implementation, annual costs, monthly costs, transaction fees, how long are the contract terms, all these things you should keep in mind as far as also training. So just, you know, hopefully a really useful tool, not to be the end-all be-all, because obviously pricing changes, features change on a regular basis with all these different platforms. So you should definitely reach out to them, but it should give you a good starting point to be able to learn more about these platforms, so you can set up demos and have further discussions with the representatives. Now, for the panel, I'd love to hear from you. You know, for example, Anna, you just went most recently, I think, through this process. Out of these features, what were some of the most important ones to you?
Yeah, the pricing one was an interesting one, because when we got down to our final 2 technology partners we were choosing from, we perhaps slightly naively assumed that the pricing would be fairly similar, and it ended up being quite different once we had made all the or made a full budget. So I would just say that it is really important that you that you look extensively at your projections of income, and look at what type of transaction fees, revenue share, monthly fees, all of those can really change once you input how much you are expecting to raise. It was it was an interesting learning experience to do that for us this year.
Yeah, definitely. And it was fun going through it with you.
Yeah.
And then Jessica, I think it's been a couple of years or a few years since you moved from, I think it was TeamRaiser to RallyBound. And what were the kind of the key features that you were looking for in the move?
Yeah, so a lot of it was certainly ease of use, and ease of use for the back end and also the front end. We had a lot of issues with participants and team captains not being able to do what they wanted on the front end of their page. So there was that. The pricing was right there in there, which again we were pretty surprised at how different it was as well. What else were we looking for? We were looking for, I guess we sort of picked Salesforce first, so we were definitely looking for something that integrated seamlessly, which is not really a thing, but as close as possible with Salesforce. What else? It has been a few years. Those were really the big ones.
Well, good. I mean, and it sounds like you didn't leave any permanent scars during the process, so well done.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And Claire, I know you guys have gone through this process there at World Bike Relief a couple of times. What's kind of been? I know you've actually stuck, I think, with CauseVox a couple of times after going through the process, right? And what made you stay, or what made you look in the first place, or anything to add around any of the features?
Yeah, so we actually kind of go through this process almost every year of reevaluating if we're on the right platform for our fundraisers. One of the things we really look for, because we're a global organization, is probably similar to Anna, and finding something that, suits donors in different countries is really important. We, very similar situation, got very far down, ready to sign a contract with a new platform, and realized the cost was almost 10 times as much as we were currently paying. And for that, we said, man, the resources we could put into trying to just grow our current, fundraising opportunities would be so much bigger. So I think the cost is a huge thing. The CRM connector is something that's growing very quickly for us, but really trying to figure out where in your nonprofit growth you are and what type of revenue is coming in to find a platform that really does suit you. Are you doing events? Do you need that registration capability? Or do you just need to start a little bit smaller at that DIY, having the capabilities, and then moving up into a larger platform? So a lot of thought goes into it, but yeah, we've stuck with CauseVox for a while because we've been able to do some interesting things with the global side of things.
Nice. Thanks, guys. And then there was a question online from Charlene asked, does it specify which websites let fundraisers post offline donations? And yes, that is included in here as well. One of the features that we checked was, does the platform allow for offline donations? And if so, is it just admins only, or can participants enter offline donations? So yes, Charlene, good question. And then there was another question from Mia. Changing platforms isn't an option for my org at the moment. Do you have any advice on how to create missing features like gamification and badges using third-party integration or other creative ways? Yeah, great question. It really depends on which platform you're currently using, and even if it's not built into it, do they offer up APIs that can you can get to the data and display it elsewhere, like on WordPress or through some other third party, display that in a way that you're looking to do. And quite often these days, more and more platforms are having APIs available. So definitely happy to chat with you about options there. All right, so next question for the panel. So when you start looking for a platform, who in the organization is involved with the process for selecting the platform? Anna, you want to take the first crack at that? I'm going to put you on the spot since you've gone through this most recently. Who all in your team, what was their roles for, and what do they do for in the selection process?
Sure, I can definitely talk about this. We did try to keep involvement in the platform selection to a minimum to try and keep the process quick and efficient. Myself and a UNICEF colleague worked with a team member from our partner Les Mills to determine our business needs. And this document became really crucial in deciding on what platform we were going to use. The business needs went through many iterations to get our priorities ordered properly. And this document was reviewed by various people, including Turnkey, who I'm sure everyone is familiar with. They're our peer-to-peer fundraising strategists, and various stakeholders in the global UNICEF team, and our Work Out for Water governance group. After we had finalised the business needs, we contacted Mark from Cathexis to assist us in the initial part of the platform search. And then once that was all sorted and we had our preferred platform, myself and my UNICEF colleague we went ahead and made the recommendation of our preferred partner, which met all our business needs and more, to all the internal stakeholders who were involved. And as everyone was in agreement, it was a pretty straightforward decision to move forward.
Yeah, you guys came to the table when I was brought in, and you had so much of your information already collected. It was really easy and straightforward to work with you. I really commend you guys on knowing what, and Turnkey for knowing what you wanted, what key features were there. I asked a few additional questions, but really you guys really had it all together and knew what, with the one season under your belt, knew what you were looking for in addition and what you required. You also have some very specific needs, right? Because operating in all the different countries you do, and that's a big disqualifier for a lot of platforms right there.
Yeah, it did make it quite quick to filter out results when it's such a global campaign.
Definitely. Jessica or Claire, anything to add? Anything else about the team? Suggestions on who else should be brought in?
This is Jessica. We tried to bring in anybody that used it. I mean, they weren't necessarily part of the final decision, but we definitely got input. We have a small team to begin with. There's only 14 of us, but we definitely tried to include everyone who sort of had a hand in it.
Yeah, and this is Claire, and I'll just add on to that.
Go ahead, Claire.
I think the only additional thing I would say is that I really looked at it so much from a fundraising side of things, but I think it really is important to bring both finance and then database in if that's something that you're concerned about, and CRM connector, because those aren't things that necessarily pop out to me in the back of my head of how it integrates with Salesforce or anything like that. But ultimately that plays a big part in terms of, kind of keeping the database clean. So I think it is a full team effort.
Yeah. Oh, great stuff. Did anybody get insights from participants, either as part of the actual, reviewing process, or just, I'm sure at least having their feedback from past participation probably drove a lot of those people, a lot of your organizations to move to looking at other options. But any formal involvement with actual participants in the process? I'm gonna take that as a no.
We don't tie in our personal fundraisers, but our team, anybody who's on the development team, including in different countries, goes through the process of setting up a fundraising page, making a donation, what it looks like on the back end of receiving a donation. So we try and go through what that experience would be like. So not only are we able to communicate that to our fundraisers, but also have a really good understanding of the platform.
Yeah, good stuff. Do recommend, if you're ever to do this again, or when you do it again, is maybe even include, or at least to get the feedback throughout the process of some of your real key fundraisers, and just get like a little bit more once removed view of the whole process from the front end. A lot of assumptions can be made, but sometimes you'll be surprised on what they might come up with that really is bugging them. You probably would have heard it throughout the campaign season or seasons, but it's always good to get those insights as well. Yeah, good stuff. All right. the selection process itself, you know, can be anything from just an informal, if you're a small team or a team of one that is, you know, filling every role of the team. You might just look through, find an ad, click through it, and see their pricing is good, and or maybe you participated in an event yourself and you're happy with that functionality and you want to do something similar to that, and you look into it and find out what tool they use. You might go that route, but hopefully you're doing kind of more research than that. Maybe there's a complete RFP process involved where you send it out to several different vendors, and they respond, and then you get through to narrowing it down to a select few, and then going through demos, both front end and back end, and then negotiating on price, because quite often the price that they send you initially might not be this final price. Sometimes it is, but it definitely, a lot of things are open to negotiation. So curious, you know, any feedback or any thoughts on the process? I know, Anna, anything you want to say about the whole process end to end that you guys just went through?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, that business needs document became really crucial in our search, and I would recommend anyone who's looking at changing or finding a provider to really analyze in depth what they actually need out of the platform and what the priorities are. So once we had determined that, Mark looked at around 40 different platforms and narrowed that down to 6, which met most of our needs. From that 6, we could quickly cull that list down to 3 based on just front end design that we could see ourselves. And also the example sites that we found on each of the platforms. Two of the 3 were clearly superior. So from there we had extensive demos from the top 2, front end and back end. And actually each provider did 2 demos with our team. So we really felt that we understood the features and the functionality really well. After that, it was really clear which platform would best serve our needs. And that was when it was time to look at the costs, analysing the budget, and then we came to our decision after that.
And yeah, having that document just made your whole process that much clearer and helped keep the conversations on track, I'm sure, because so often the vendors are likely to really show off what they like best, and they should, but you don't want to lose sight of what's really most important to you, right, along the way, and having that list of requirements is really important.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Jessica, you said, you know, you worked with a consultant on the Salesforce side of things, kind of driving a lot of the need because you were moving from Razor's Edge to Salesforce and looking for something that integrated with that. How did your process differ, or what was unique about that, or any suggestions there?
It was kind of interesting because we sort of knew going in that we wanted Salesforce. I just had an affinity for that. And so I said to the consultant, you know, forget about that. Show me everything else and kind of get me away from that. And they couldn't. So it was good because it made us, it really did make us realize that it was the best thing for us. Now I guess the interesting thing about that is there's certain apps that Salesforce pushes. There's certain apps they don't like. So there was a little bit of politics involved. But at the end of the day, our consultant really looked, I mean, you know, I think you listed like 39 of those things. I think they looked at 20 of them. I mean, I think they really did some good research. And it was nice using them because we didn't have to go out and do all the legwork. A lot of it they just knew already, which was good. But I think it was a very objective kind of thing. They didn't really push what they liked necessarily. And it's always nice to have somebody who knows what the companies like to work with, and they're sort of on your side. So right. that was a good thing for us to do.
Excellent. And then Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like yours is kind of on an annual basis, kind of doing a postmortem on the season and what worked and what didn't, kind of overall campaign, and the platform is one thing in there, right? Or is it any more formal than that at this point?
Yeah, no, that's about right. And just kind of looking to meet our needs. I think one of the things that we've realized more and more is trying to implement fundraising on a global side. It takes out a lot of the platforms out of the mix, and it narrows it down for us. So that's been something that we constantly try and make sure that we're serving all of our, different development teams with a product that suits their needs. So yeah.
Great. I think we've kind of listed this along the way, but any other lessons learned as far as, what part of the process worked really well? Anna, you mentioned, having that document and spelling it out. Anything else that you feel like worked really well, and anything that you would have done differently, doing it again, or suggest to somebody to do differently next time?
Yeah, the other thing I'd mentioned that worked really well was actually having a partner to do the majority of the legwork. It was fantastic to have cathexis to narrow down our search and even look at platforms that wouldn't have even been on our radar to start with. So if it had just been us searching, I'm sure we wouldn't have found our preferred partner that way, or it would have taken much longer. So bringing in that third party consultant really sped up the process, and it worked really, really well for us. I can't think of anything that we would have done differently. Perhaps, Mark, as you said, bringing in a fundraiser to actually test out the platform that we are choosing to use could have been a good idea. However, because the process was so quick, I'm not sure if that would have worked, but yeah, it would be something that we would consider next time.
Awesome. Well, and thank you so much for stepping right into my softball pitch of what worked well and you saying us. So I appreciate that.
No worries.
How about you, Jessica? What worked, well in that process, and what would you, have done differently or do differently next time?
That's a good question. Like I said, I liked the objectivity. I really just liked the sort of the consultant that we chose. They worked, we worked well together. Differently, I think we probably, in our conversion, I think we should have had maybe some more realistic expectations for timeline. And I think no matter what you think your timeline is, it's always going to be longer, because that's just the nature of the beast. And it wasn't awful, but we sort of had certain dates we wanted to hit, and we were kind of close on some of them. Yeah, that was pretty much it. It worked out pretty well for us.
Just curious, if you can share, if you don't mind sharing, who was the consultant? There's a lot of good consultants out there. Let's give them a shout out.
It's called Back Office Thinking. They're in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
They did a great job. They happened to be local to us, which was just a coincidence. But they did a great job.
Cool. Excellent. And Claire, what worked well, when you do these annual reviews, and what would you do differently?
I think having the spreadsheet that you've been showing has been really important, because I think it hits on a lot of different parts of what you're looking for in a platform. That again, me as a development person, I might not be thinking of the Salesforce integration or something like that. So that's been always really useful for us. And then yes, taking in that timeline into account. You always think making the switch or implementing something is going to be so much faster than it is, and giving yourself ample time to really move into it is so important. We tried out a new platform last year, right before our big event, our big virtual event in December that I referenced, and boy, were we pushing hard to get that done, and that was a little bit stressful. So I think taking that time is so important.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, that's a really key factor for sure. Any other words of advice? I think we covered a lot here, but anything else specific that you would, give as a sage warrior have going through this process? Anybody that you haven't already said?
I think with any change, the more buy-in you can get from, really anybody on the team, the better off you are. We've done some adoption things with, you know, gamification internally. You know, things like sort of showing time saved on new processes and things like that. I think it's a little bit overlooked sometimes. You just assume everybody's going to know, hey, this is a great change, you should do it. And that's not necessarily the case. People don't like change.
Right. Yeah, I'd also kind of go back to the timeline and say how important it is to really, if you're looking at, you know, your current platform, a lot of them have, you know, annual, biannual, or every, you know, you sign up for 3 years worth of contract, right? Don't get caught out when they reach out to you to say, hey, it's time to renew, and you find out that you have like 1 to 3 months, and then that's when you start your search. You're not gonna be you're not gonna do yourself or your constituents or anybody a favor by not giving yourself as much runway as you can. Know when your contracts are up, and make sure you do that search early to give yourself as much time to make the right selection, and then implement the new campaign. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
One thing I might add to that is not only thinking about that timeline for yourself and your team, but also for your fundraisers. So 4 years ago, when we switched from Blue State Digital to CauseVox, you know, another big thing to think about is how are we going to move all the current fundraisers from the platform that they're on to the new platform? What does that communication look like? How long are we going to have some overlap in both of the platforms to make sure that we're, you know, we've gathered all the data from there and we've been able to kind of make a clean shut off without, you know, ostracizing anybody. So I think that's a whole nother part of any type of platform switch to take into account.
Definitely.
Something that is not related to that, but it's probably a small point. I would just say it's important to keep your options open in terms of the location of your provider. Sometimes we think it's easiest to have the platform partner in a location that's close by, but speaking from experience, it is possible to create a fantastic platform from teaming up with New Zealand and Copenhagen. So it is possible, and there are some really fantastic platform providers out there who are based all over the world.
That's a great one, and that's actually why I'm laughing, is that reminds me of someone that reached out to me recently and said, hey, I'm working with this foundation trying to help them find the right platform, and you know, I was looking at such and such, I don't want to give their name, and they said, you know, and I'm really curious on them because they're right here in our backyard. Their headquarters are right here in our backyard. I'm like, wait, where are you? And he told me, and I'm like, no, they're headquartered. That's not their headquarters at all. They're headquartered here. They happen to have, you know, a remote office there. I think they have a small staff in that area, but it was, you know, they were just trying to say, yeah, we're neighbors and we can help you out, but the platform doesn't have to be right next door or down the road to be able to provide you great support.
Yeah.
Any other advice? All right. Well, it wouldn't be a session about peer-to-peer fundraising if I didn't at least put this up here. Facebook fundraising. And then I just go, and all the reasons why I dislike it. There's a lot, and all the reasons I dislike Facebook in general, but there are pros and cons. Pros, obviously, it's great, it's free. People are going to set them up anyways. It's easy to set up and easy to share, naturally, since it's in Facebook. It's easy to share within Facebook. But the cons are it's minimal constituent information that is shared, which is ironic considering why they're in trouble and in the news so much, because they're sharing so much information, just not with the organizations they should be. But they really only share first name and last name and the donation amount. They will share the email address, but only if in the unlikely event that the donor actually approved that throughout the process or in their general settings, and they probably didn't. So trying to connect that donation back to a participant can be hard. Slow administrative responses for account setup and payments. Payment time can take a while, a month or so. Only reaches Facebook users as far as the audience is concerned, and limited control over the branding and design. You should still set these up because it's there, and people are going to use them anyways. But I know we were talking about it. Me and the panelists here were talking about it even just yesterday, and saying, people are going to use it anyways, but sometimes they'll assume that since they're donating to it, if they have a live campaign and a live campaign page on some other fundraising platform, they would think that that amount is going to end up being automatically displayed in the fundraising tool, and that's probably not necessarily true. Definitely isn't if it's not connected in some way. So there's definitely can be a lot of negatives to using Facebook fundraising. And then also, just if you start getting Facebook fundraisers, they might have donated, say, $5,000, and then you send out a general campaign saying, hey, we noticed you haven't donated for a while, and they could say, wait, I just gave you $5,000. You just don't happen to know that because that data didn't sync up, and you didn't have that level of detail. So it just is a different world to consider, and a different nuance when looking at your overall communications and engagement strategy on that. Anything else anybody would add to that? Any other thoughts around Facebook fundraising?
One of the things we have an issue with is that donors don't understand. I mean, you touched on that some, but donors think they're giving directly to you, and they think that it's going to show up on a walk page or team page or whatever it is. And we get a lot of, oh, well, I did this, can you move it to that page? And we actually don't do that. So we have some unhappy donors, but it's sort of the double-edged sword of, you can do this so easily, but at the same time, you're not really doing what you want to do. We've tried to tell fundraisers to put their, instead of using the donate, just put their link on their page. But it is 3, 4, 5 more steps. So I think I don't think it's going anywhere, unfortunately.
And there are some platforms that are doing heavier integrations, like TeamRaiser. Blackbaud's TeamRaiser came out with some functionality earlier this year that integrates that more deeply with TeamRaiser, and some of the other platforms as well have some integrations to help bring that in or make it easy to expand their platforms into the Facebook or other social media environment. But just know what it's out there, and know what you're dealing with there. All right, general questions from anybody in the audience. We have one up here. What are some of those hidden fees that you want to ask about when looking at platform costs? That is a great question. Let me see if I can back up here. Oh, there it is. So yeah, hidden fees. Know when you're talking about transaction fees, know whether or not the vendor is including or not excluding the merchant fees or the credit card fees. We try to set this guide up so it's only reporting what the platform is receiving, and then credit card fees would be on top of that. So know those differences in transactional fees, because there probably is a platform fee. There might not be, but there probably is. And then there's the merchant services and or credit card fees. Then there's probably maybe monthly or annual fees paid quarterly or annually. Implementation costs, there may or may not be any. And then there's some platforms that are even charging for training, which I think is kind of counterproductive. You would think that if someone's using your platform, the more people that know how to use it and are comfortable in it, the better. But some are even, charging for relatively rudimentary training in my mind. And that's, so you just want to make sure you ask all those questions in advance, and then also know what you're committing to. There's some that don't require any kind of a contract, and just month to month, while a lot of these platforms do require annual or 2 or 3 year multi-year contracts. So just be very aware of any fees. And then any customizations, know how much control you have of the environment, and then if it's going to cost extra for either pay the vendor or a third party to do those customizations is also something to be very aware of as well. Other questions? Just wanted to share some resources. Cathexis Partners website is here on the screen. We have a blog that we try to post to at least twice a month. The new guide is available there, but I believe we're going to be sending it out as an attachment or a link to download this after the sessions today. Also check out PeertoPeer World, where we annually get together and have conferences like this. And feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to help. But if there's no other questions, which I'm not seeing any at this time, thank you, all for attending today. And thank you very much to all the panelists for giving us your experience and expertise and sharing with you anything and your experiences. Really appreciate everybody's time today. And I'm going to hand it back over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Mark, and excellent. Thank you so much for our panel. There's definitely a lot of peer-to-peer technologies out there, which can be super overwhelming for all the nonprofits, but I think the panel gave some solid recommendations for technologies for the different types of peer-to-peer campaigns, and it gives nonprofits a good guideline. So we've reached the end of our time for this session, so thank you so much for joining us. Please note that if you'll be joining us for the next conference session, you're going to need to log back into the next session by using the link and dial-in number that you received via email when you registered.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.